Hi, it's Tara Bianca with Light Transformative Therapy, and today I want to talk about the 4-6 breathing technique. Even though it's so simple, there are some magical benefits that come from breathing at this 1 to 1.5 ratio. Let's take a look. Four-six breathing can also be referred to as coherent breathing or sometimes as resonance frequency breathing. This is simply a 4-second inhale followed by a 6-second exhale. The overall objective is to slow down the breath from something like 10 to 16 breaths per minute, which is about the typical range for an average adult, to something closer to 6 breaths per minute. Studies have shown that breathing between 4.5 and 6 breaths per minute helps to get you the benefits that I will be discussing today. So if you've ever tried a 5-5 breath, meaning inhaling for 5 seconds and exhaling for 5 seconds, I have a video on that right here, by the way. That would also be considered coherent or resonance frequency breathing, as it also totals 6 breaths per minute. So the benefits will be more or less the same. To get the benefits of 4-6 breathing, which I'll talk about in a minute, you want to make sure you're following some basic guidelines. Number 1, nasal breathing. You'll want to make sure that you're inhaling and exhaling through your nose with a closed mouth. Number 2, good oral posture. That means lips together, upper and lower teeth slightly separated, and the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth right behind your top teeth. Number 3, diaphragmatic breathing. I used to always say that you want to feel your belly expand out on your inhale and deflate in on your exhale. But an even better cue is to put your hands on your lower ribs, and on your inhale, you want to feel your lowest ribs expand out to the side, and on your exhale, you want to feel your lower ribs deflate in towards the midline. Let me show you. So I have my hands on my lowest ribs, and I'm putting a little bit of resistance inward onto my rib cage, and as I inhale through my nose, I feel my ribs go out to the sides, and hopefully you can see my hands going out to the sides as a response to my rib cage. And then on my exhale, I can feel my hands pushing my ribs slightly inward towards midline. Number 4, slow breathing. This one is sort of built into the technique, since you are shifting from whatever your normal respiratory rate is, which for a typical adult could be in the range of 10 to 16 breaths per minute, down to 6 breaths per minute. And lastly, number 5 is an extended exhale. This just means extending the exhale to be longer than the inhale. In this case, we're going for a 1 to 1.5 ratio, 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out. Let's examine each of these key features now, one at a time, and take a look at their specific benefits. Your nose is an amazing organ, and one of its primary functions is to do this thing we call breathing. It has direct connections to your diaphragm, and together, these two structures are designed to create the most efficient and coordinated breathing. The extra resistance created by your nostrils, as opposed to your mouth, actually allows for a 10% greater uptake of oxygen into your lungs. Your nose also conditions the air that you breathe in by warming, humidifying, and purifying it before sending it down through the respiratory tract. And even more importantly, your nasal cavity is continuously releasing nasal nitric oxide to be inhaled into the lungs with each inhale. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Whereas your mouth produces pretty much a negligible amount of nitric oxide. If you look at any other species in the wild, unless they're in a state of stress or sickness, they're breathing through their noses. Chronic mouth breathing is truly a unique human predicament. The primary benefit of having your tongue positioned correctly is that it also allows for your mandible or your jawbone to sit in an optimal position that would allow for the most open airways, which of course means an increased opportunity to get oxygen in. And then there are some less well understood benefits of tongue position, including increased balance and coordination, decreased perception of stress, and improved spatial awareness. This is in part due to the fascial and neurological connections that stem from your tongue, as well as the fact that your tongue is a major sensory organ that sends a ton of information back to your brain. I don't have a ton of details to share with you about this topic today, but I do think it's something that's worth further exploration, and I just wanted to plant the seed in your mind in case this is a topic you'd like to dive into further on your own. When you're standing, most of the blood in your lungs is located in the lowest lobes. And when you go to inhale, your diaphragm descends into your abdominal cavity, which creates negative pressure in the chest cavity, allowing air to flow in through the nostrils and fill up this empty space. Most importantly, by initiating your breath by using your diaphragm, as opposed to the accessory muscles of your chest and your neck, you actually allow oxygen to get into the lowest part of your lungs where all of that blood is stored, as well as where all of your small air sacs, or alveoli, live. The alveoli are responsible for gas exchange, the primary reason that you're breathing in the first place. So if oxygen doesn't reach the alveoli, respiration doesn't happen, and that's bad. Diaphragmatic breathing then improves what we refer to as alveolar ventilation, the gas exchange that happens at the level of the alveoli, and that is good. The lowest section of your lungs also houses more parasympathetic activity. This, along with the very direct connection between your diaphragm and your vagus nerve, allows diaphragmatic breathing to elicit a parasympathetic or relaxation response in your body. And it sends a signal to your brain that it is safe, that your environment is safe, and that you are safe. This is why slow diaphragmatic breathing can be so effective in helping to reduce anxiety and stress and in soothing emotional unease. And let's not forget that your diaphragm is also critical for helping to pump lymph through your lymphatic system and also for stabilizing the spine for functional movement and optimal posture. I've talked about this in my Breath Lectures in 2 Minutes or Less series, which you can check out up here. Slow breathing in general, but the 4-6 cadence in particular, has been shown to improve heart rate variability, which is essentially your heart's ability to adapt and respond to changes in your environment. It's also been shown to increase respiratory sinus arrhythmia, which is the ability of your heart rate to perfectly match up with your respiratory rate. It's been shown to increase vagal tone, which is again the ability of your vagus nerve to respond when you need it to. Meaning, how quickly and easily can you get into relaxation mode or parasympathetic dominance? Slow breathing also increases alveolar ventilation, which I talked about a little bit earlier. This is mostly because the oxygen has more time to reach the lower parts of the lungs where the alveoli are actually housed, and this means more oxygen uptake. Slow breathing decreases the sensitivity of your chemoreceptors to elevated levels of CO2 in your blood, something that's known as CO2 tolerance. I'll talk about that more in a minute. And lastly, slow breathing increases the sensitivity of your baroreceptors. These are specialized pressure receptors in your blood vessels, namely in your aorta and your carotid arteries, which help to determine the dilation or constriction of your blood vessels. The measure of sensitivity of your baroreceptors is very closely associated with your vagal tone. In the case of slow breathing, how quickly do your baroreceptors send a signal to your brain to dilate the blood vessels in order to create lower blood pressure and elicit a relaxation response in your body? Your exhale is the relaxation portion of your breath. It more so promotes a parasympathetic response in your body, which allows your heart rate to slow down, your blood pressure to lower, and which elicits a sense of inner calm and relaxation. Extending the exhale also allows for a more efficient release and distribution of nasal nitric oxide into your lungs. As you inhale, nasal nitric oxide helps to sterilize that incoming air, and then it gets carried deep down into your lungs. There, nitric oxide helps to redistribute the blood within the lungs themselves. So remember earlier, I said that most of the blood in your lungs tends to pool in the lowest portions during standing. Well, nitric oxide helps to redistribute that blood throughout the lungs, creating more surface area, if you will, for oxygen to diffuse into the blood. Nitric oxide also acts as a bronchodilator, opening up the airways to allow more air to enter the body, as well as a vasodilator, which again allows for the blood vessels to expand to allow for more blood flow and more oxygen flow with less pressure. And then, of course, the longer your exhale, the more time your nasal cavity has to pool more nitric oxide, preparing it for the next inhale, and the cycle continues. And lastly, an extended exhale is always an opportunity to allow a buildup of CO2 in your blood, helping you to improve your CO2 tolerance. An elevated level of CO2 in the blood is the stimulus to breathe. But the presence of elevated levels of CO2 in your blood is also what actually triggers the oxygen to leave your red blood cells and enter your tissues in your organs for nourishment. So too little tolerance for CO2 can translate into poor oxygenation of tissues, stress, and fatigue. In order to improve your CO2 tolerance, you'll want to decrease the sensitivity of your chemoreceptors. Extended exhale breathing can help you to accomplish that. Throughout this video, I've been breaking down all these details and taking sort of a reductionist approach to breathing. But please know that you do not need to think about all of these details when you are doing your breath practice. One component will naturally trigger all the rest, and you will reap the benefits of this practice without having to overthink it. Breathing does not have to be complicated. In fact, it shouldn't be. It should be the most natural thing in the world. It is the foundational element of everything that we do as living, breathing human beings. So while breathing should never be taken for granted, it certainly should never be overcomplicated. I hope this video helps you to see how powerful simple breath practices can be. If you would like to try out a guided 4-6 breath session, I have a couple of options for you. In my attempt to please all of the people all of the time, I have created 2 separate guided 4-6 breath sessions for you guys. One has background music, while the other has no background music. Both sessions are 15 minutes total, but I've included indicators for you guys at the 5-minute, the 10-minute, and the 15-minute mark so that you get to decide while you're breathing how long you want your session to be. This is an experiment, so if you do try out one of these 2 guided sessions, please leave me some feedback so that I best know how to craft future guided sessions to specifically serve your needs. You can find the links to both of those guided sessions in the video description as well as on the end screen. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe to my channel and know that I am more than happy to create videos that directly answer your questions. So if you have any specific questions, please do not hesitate to leave them in the comments below this video. Also, be sure to try out my Breath Basics 6-Day Challenge. This is a totally free 6-day breath training where you get access to one 15-minute video lesson each day for 6 days. It also comes with a 20-page breath companion guide, which highlights each technique, its benefits, and suggestions for practice. And you get lifetime access to all the videos so you can go back and watch them again and again. You can find the link to my free 6-day challenge in the video description below as well as on my end screen. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.